The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the beach as my family and I settled into our spot on the sand. It was our annual summer holiday, a week of sun, laughter, and relaxation. I had looked forward to this trip for months, eager to feel the warm sand between my toes and hear the gentle crash of the waves. But little did I know this would be a holiday I would never forget. After a hearty lunch of sandwiches and chips, I finally made my way to the water, the waves lapping playfully at the shore. I splashed through the surf, laughing as the cool water enveloped me. The beach was alive with the sounds of children playing, families enjoying their day, and the distant calls of seagulls overhead. It felt idyllic until I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. There in the shallows was a small black jellyfish-like creature. It floated just beneath the surface, pulsing gently as if it were alive, its dark form contrasting sharply with the turquoise water. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a strange sensation that I couldn't quite place. It was so small, almost cute, but there was something unsettling about its presence. I watched as it drifted closer, drawn by some invisible force, and for reasons I couldn't explain, my heart quickened. As I waded deeper into the water, the creature followed me, its tiny body gliding effortlessly through the waves. I felt a mix of fear and intrigue. Was it really following me? I turned to swim back to shore, glancing over my shoulder to find it still there, hovering just beneath the surface, its dark form a stark reminder of the unease that had begun to settle in my gut. I stumbled out of the water, shaking off the droplets as I hurried back to my family. I tried to laugh it off, but the sight of that little creature lingered in my mind, an unwelcome shadow clinging to my thoughts. The rest of the day passed in a blur of laughter and sunbathing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That night as I lay in bed, the image of the black jellyfish haunted me. I closed my eyes, hoping for sleep, but every time I drifted off, I was jolted awake by the nagging feeling that I wasn't alone. I could almost feel its presence lurking just outside my vision. It was a long, restless night. When we returned home, I tried to forget about the creature, but it was impossible. It came back to me in flashes. At the local pool, I spotted it skimming along the surface. In the park pond, it floated among the reeds. Each time I felt the same rush of fear. I confided in my mother, desperate for reassurance. "There's something in the water, Mom. A black jellyfish." She smiled, brushing my concerns aside. "It's just your imagination, honey. You were probably just tired from all the sun." But I knew what I had seen, and I grew increasingly frustrated when my friends laughed at my stories. They couldn't see it, and it made me feel more isolated. I began to avoid the water altogether, but even on dry land, I could feel the creature's presence lurking just out of sight, always watching. Weeks turned into months, and the creature became an unwelcome companion, haunting my thoughts and dreams. It was as if it had latched onto me, refusing to let go. I felt sick more often, fatigue creeping into my bones no matter how much I rested. I tried to explain it to my family, but they dismissed my concerns. "Just a cold, sweetheart," they would say, and I would nod, but deep down I knew it was more than that. Then one fateful day my family decided to return to the beach. I felt a mix of dread and resignation as we packed our bags, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to confront this creature once and for all. Maybe if I touched it, I would understand what it wanted. Or perhaps it would finally release me from its grasp. As we set up our spot on the sand, I could feel my heart racing. The waves crashed against the shore, the salty breeze whipping through my hair. I hesitated at the water's edge, the familiar dread spilling over me. But I was determined. I took a deep breath and waded into the surf, scanning the water for that familiar dark shape. And then, there it was again, just as I remembered. The tiny black jellyfish floated nearby, pulsing gently in the current. My hands trembled as I reached out, feeling the cool water swirl around my fingers. I touched it, and in that instant an icy shock coursed through my body. It was as if a jolt of electricity surged through me, wrapping around my limbs and squeezing tightly. I gasped, pulling my hand back, but it was too late. The sensation was overwhelming, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I stumbled back to the shore, the warmth of the sand beneath my feet contrasting sharply with the chill that had settled deep within me. My family noticed my distress, but when I tried to explain what had happened, they dismissed my panic as a mere reaction to the cold water. "You just need to rest," my mother said, concern etched into her features. But I knew this was different. I could feel something dark lurking within me, an insidious presence that was growing stronger by the minute. That night as I lay in bed, I was consumed by feverish chills. I tossed and turned, the shadows in my room morphing into shapes that seemed to mock me. I could almost hear whispers, soft and taunting, echoing in my mind. Days passed and my condition worsened. The fever persisted, spiking and falling like a pendulum, while my energy drained away, leaving me weak and frail. My family took me to doctors, but every test came back normal. Just a virus, they insisted. She'll bounce back. But I didn't bounce back. I felt like I was fading, and the creature's presence loomed larger, invading my thoughts and dreams. I became terrified of water, pools, lakes, even the rain kept me indoors. Every time I heard the sound of water, my heart raced, and I could feel the icy tendrils of fear wrapping around my throat. I spent my days in a haze, drifting in and out of consciousness, plagued by nightmares of the jellyfish. In my dreams, it would loom over me, its dark form pulsating with a sinister rhythm. I could feel its tendrils wrapping around my wrists, pulling me deeper into the ocean, whispering promises of release, of freedom if only I would succumb. It's just a phase, my friends would say, but they didn't understand. They couldn't see what I saw. The creature was always there, lurking in the corners of my vision, waiting for me to slip up and succumb to its call. I could feel it beckoning me, inviting me back to the water, promising that everything would be okay if I just touched it again. But I resisted. I fought against the darkness that threatened to consume me. I wanted to scream, to tell someone, anyone, about the creature that had latched onto my soul. But every time I opened my mouth, the words got caught in my throat, stifled by the weight of disbelief that surrounded me. As the months dragged on, I became a shadow of my former self. My family watched helplessly as I deteriorated, their worry turning into frustration. "You need to see a therapist," my mother suggested, her voice trembling with concern. "This isn't normal, and we can't keep pretending it is." I agreed, though I felt deep down that therapy wouldn't help. I was convinced that the creature had cursed me, that I was forever in its grasp. The sessions were filled with discussions about anxiety and fear, but I couldn't bring myself to reveal the truth. They wouldn't believe me. No one would. One day, as I sat in the therapist's office, I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. The walls seemed to pulse, and I could have sworn I saw the dark shape of the jellyfish flickering at the corners of my vision. I gripped the arms of the chair, desperate to stay grounded. "I don't feel well," I whispered, but my therapist merely nodded, seemingly oblivious to the battle raging within me. Eventually, I stopped going to therapy. It felt pointless. Nothing could change what I had experienced. I retreated further into my shell, isolating myself from friends and family. My world became a series of darkened rooms and silent nights, filled with the whispers of the creature that haunted me. As time went on, I could feel my body giving up. I was consumed by sickness, my skin pale and clammy, my energy depleted. The creature's grip tightened, and I often found myself staring blankly at the water, longing for the release it promised, even as I feared it. Then one evening, as twilight settled over the world, I felt a strange compulsion pulling me outside. I wandered to the small pond at the park near my house, where I had played as a child. The water shimmered under the fading light, and for a moment, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. But then I saw it. The black jellyfish was there, floating just beneath the surface, its dark form taunting me with its presence. My heart raced, and the familiar dread clawed at my insides. But something was different this time. The whispers grew louder, almost pleading. They echoed in my mind, wrapping around me like a shroud. "Come closer," they seemed to beckon. "Just touch it. You'll understand." Confusion and desperation collided within me. I felt as if I were at a crossroads, torn between the instinct to run and an overwhelming urge to reach out. I took a hesitant step toward the water, my breath hitching in my throat. The creature floated closer to the surface, its form glimmering in the dusk. I was entranced, my body moving of its own accord. As I knelt at the pond's edge, the water lapped at my fingers, cool and inviting. I could see the jellyfish clearly now, its pulsing rhythm synchronized with the racing of my heart. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the surface. The moment I made contact, a jolt surged through me, stronger than before. This time, however, it was accompanied by a wave of clarity, a rush of sensations that overwhelmed my senses. I felt as though I were being pulled into the depths of the water, the world around me fading into darkness. Visions flashed before my eyes. The beach, the laughter of my family, and then the creature always hovering just out of reach, a constant reminder of my fear. But then, amid the chaos, I saw something else, faces. The faces of people who had vanished, lost to the ocean's depths. I gasped, pulling my hand back in horror, but it was too late. The realization hit me like a crashing wave. The jellyfish was not merely a creature. It was a harbinger of something far more sinister. It was a vessel for the souls of those who had succumbed to its call, trapped in an endless cycle of despair. I stumbled back from the pond, panic surging through my veins. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the creature was demanding I return, that I join the others. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest, the shadows of the trees stretching around me like grasping hands. That night, I lay in bed, trembling beneath my sheets, the weight of what I had discovered pressing heavily on my chest. I could feel the sickness in my bones, a dark cloud that refused to lift. I wanted to scream, to tell someone about the truth I had uncovered, but I was terrified they would dismiss me, that they wouldn't understand the darkness that had seeped into my life. Days turned into weeks and I continued to spiral further into my illness. My physical condition deteriorated, but it was the mental torment that truly consumed me. I could hear the creature whispering to me in the dark, calling me back to the water, promising that everything would be okay if I would just let go. I fought desperately against its pull, but the battle felt increasingly hopeless. Friends and family grew concerned, I could see it in their eyes. They tried to reach out to pull me back into their world, but I felt like a ghost, drifting through life without truly living. I wanted to scream, to tell them about the creature and the truth it held, but I couldn't break the hold it had on me. Then one day I found myself standing at the water's edge once more. The waves crashed against the shore, and as the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the world in hues of orange and pink, I felt an inexplicable pull toward the ocean. The creature awaited me, lurking just beneath the surface like a dark secret. Tears streamed down my face as I battled with my own mind, torn between fear and a longing for release. I could feel my body weakening, and I knew that if I didn't confront this once and for all, it would consume me entirely. I took a deep breath, feeling the salty breeze wash over me, and stepped into the surf. As I waded deeper into the water, the familiar sensation of cold enveloped me, but this time I didn't hesitate. The jellyfish rose to meet me, its dark form pulsing in rhythm with my racing heart. I reached out, trembling, and as my fingers brushed against its surface, a wave of energy surged through me. But instead of the fear I had felt before, I experienced something different, an overwhelming sense of calm. I closed my eyes, letting the darkness wash over me, and in that moment, I felt a strange connection to the creature. It was as if I were being drawn into a world beyond my own, a world where pain and suffering didn't exist. But along with this calm came a realization that chilled me to the bone. It was not a release. Just as the realization dawned on me, the water surged around me, pulling me deeper. Panic surged through my veins, and I fought against the current, instinctively wanting to break free. I could feel the weight of the creature pressing down on me, its energy tightening like a vice. I gasped for air, splashing wildly, but the water only seemed to wrap around me tighter. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I could either let the darkness consume me or I could fight back. Drawing on every ounce of strength I had left, I focused all my energy on breaking free from the creature's grip. I thought of my family, the laughter we shared, and the warmth of the sun on my face. I thought of the life I wanted to reclaim, the dreams I had yet to fulfill. With a surge of defiance, I pushed against the water, not just physically but mentally. I shouted out loud, "I refuse to be your prisoner." The words echoed in the air, strong and clear, cutting through the fog of despair that had enveloped me for so long. I could feel the dark energy wavering, the whispers growing fainter as I fought against the tide. Suddenly, the water released its hold and I found myself breaking the surface, gasping for breath. I flailed to shore, dragging my body through the sand, collapsing in a heap just beyond the reach of the waves. The night air was cool against my skin, and as I lay there, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I had faced the darkness and I had chosen to fight back. But the battle wasn't over. I knew the creature would not easily relinquish its hold on me. I had to confront it, to understand it fully so that I could reclaim my life. I began to piece together a plan, determined to seek help and to share my experience with those who could understand. The following days were challenging. I sought therapy again, this time with a newfound resolve to be honest about my fears and the entity that had haunted me. I spoke to my family, who listened with concern and compassion, and they rallied around me, offering support I had once pushed away. I found comfort in community groups, sharing my story with others who had faced their own demons. Through these connections, I learned that I wasn't alone. Other people had battled their own versions of darkness, and together we formed a bond that strengthened our resolve. We shared strategies, coping mechanisms, and most importantly, hope. With each passing day, I felt lighter, the weight of the creature's influence lifting. Gradually, I began to reclaim my life. I took long walks along the beach, allowing the sound of the waves to soothe me rather than terrify me. I immersed myself in art and writing, pouring my experiences onto the page, transforming my pain into something beautiful. I faced my fears, knowing that every time I did, I weakened the creature's grip on my soul. Months later, as I stood on the shore once more, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, and the ocean sparkled invitingly. I had faced the darkness, and though I knew it would always be a part of my story, It no longer controlled me. With a newfound strength, I took a step closer to the water, allowing the gentle waves to lap at my feet. Instead of fear, I felt gratitude for the journey I had undertaken, for the lessons learned through pain and struggle. I had emerged from the depths, not just surviving but thriving, ready to embrace the life that lay ahead. And as I turned to leave the shore, I glanced back at the water, knowing that while the creature might still lurk beneath the surface, I had reclaimed my power. I would no longer be its prisoner, I was free. With each step away from the shore, I felt lighter, as if shedding the remnants of the shadow that had once loomed so heavily over me. I had learned to navigate the waves of my own emotions, and while I understood that darkness might always exist as a part of my journey, I now possessed the tools to confront it. As weeks turned into months, I began to embrace life with renewed vigor. I reconnected with friends, sharing laughter and joy I had once pushed away. I joined a local art class, finding solace and expression in the colors and shapes that flowed from my brush. Each stroke became a form of therapy, a way to channel my past into something transformative. But the most significant change came when I decided to share my story beyond my small circle. I began writing a blog, detailing my experiences with the creature that had haunted me and the journey of healing I had embarked upon. It felt daunting to open up to the world, but I hoped my words might resonate with others who had faced similar battles. To my surprise, the response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people who had fought their own demons, who felt seen and understood through my words. They shared their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs, creating a community that offered support and encouragement. I realized I was not alone, and that our shared experiences had the power to uplift and inspire. One evening, as I sat in my studio surrounded by the warm glow of string lights, I received a message that stood out. A woman named Sarah had reached out to me, sharing her own battle with fear and despair. She had been dealing with her own version of the creature that haunted her, and my story had given her the courage to seek help. We began exchanging messages, and soon after we decided to meet in person. Our first meeting was at a cozy cafe, and as we talked, I could see the parallels in our journeys. She spoke of the darkness that had shadowed her for years, and I shared my own experiences, feeling a sense of camaraderie that was both comforting and empowering. We found strength in our vulnerability, and together we brainstormed ways to raise awareness about mental health and the importance of seeking help. Motivated by our discussions, we organized a local art event titled From Shadows to Light, where people could express their experiences through art, poetry, and storytelling. The event was a celebration of resilience, creativity, and community, and it drew an unexpectedly large crowd. I watched as people shared their stories on stage, their voices trembling but powerful. The energy in the room was palpable, filled with tears, laughter, and the catharsis of finally being heard. It was a reminder that while we may face our own battles, there is an undeniable strength in coming together. The event not only raised awareness but also fostered connections among those who felt isolated in their struggles. As the months continued to unfold, I found myself reflecting on the journey from darkness to light. I had transformed my fear into purpose, using my experiences to help others navigate their own paths. The creature that once haunted me had become a catalyst for growth and connection, pushing me to embrace vulnerability and authenticity. One day, as I sat by the beach watching the waves dance under the golden sun, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The ocean remained vast and unyielding, but I no longer saw it as a source of fear. Instead, I viewed it as a reminder of my strength and resilience. The jellyfish, once a symbol of despair, had become a part of my narrative, a testament to the power of confronting our fears head-on. I took a deep breath, savoring the salty air, and closed my eyes. I knew there would be challenges ahead and that the creature might still linger in the shadows, but I felt equipped to face whatever came my way. I had learned that healing is not linear. It's a journey filled with ups and downs, but each step forward is a victory worth celebrating. As I opened my eyes, I turned to the water one last time, a smile gracing my lips. "You no longer control me," I whispered to the waves, a sense of peace settling within me. I walked away from the shore, ready to embrace whatever life had in store, armed with the knowledge that I had the power to rise above the darkness and find my own light. The night was alive with laughter and the crackling of the bonfire as my friends and I gathered on the beach, the salty breeze tousling our hair. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the sand, and the rhythmic sound of the waves felt both comforting and ominous. We had planned this getaway for weeks, seeking adventure and a few ghost stories to share under the stars. As the flames danced, we took turns recounting local legends about restless spirits and haunted shipwrecks. The stories grew darker as the hour grew late, each tale more chilling than the last. It was Nick who first mentioned the old lighthouse down the coast, rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a keeper who vanished one stormy night. Some say he still roams the beach, searching for something he lost, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. We all shivered, though I couldn't tell if it was from the chill in the air or the fear that crept into our minds. Just then Amy pointed toward the water. Look, she exclaimed, her voice a mix of excitement and fear. We turned to see strange footprints leading away from our fire, deep imprints in the sand that seemed to vanish into the darkness of the ocean. They were large and bare, as if someone had walked out of the water and into the night. Who would be out here at this hour? I wondered aloud, unease settling in my stomach. Maybe it's just someone else camping nearby, suggested Jake, though his voice lacked conviction. But the footprints didn't look like they belonged to a casual beachgoer. They were too deliberate, too purposeful, leading straight toward the waves that lapped at the shore. Let's follow them, Nick said, his curiosity piquing. What if it's a prank? Or maybe someone is in trouble? No way, I replied, unwilling to let my fear show. It's probably just some animal. But as Nick stood, our friend Kyle jumped to his feet, fueled by bravado. I'll go with you. This is going to be epic. His grin was infectious, and against my better judgment I felt myself wanting to join them. Stay together, Amy warned, her voice thin with worry. Please. It's late and I don't like this. Ignoring her, we followed the footprints, the sand shifting beneath our feet as we ventured further from the warmth of the fire. The moonlight glinted off the water, creating a ghostly shimmer that felt alive. We walked in silence, the sound of the waves growing louder, almost mocking. After a few minutes, the footprints suddenly stopped at the water's edge, as if the person had simply vanished. What the hell? Nick muttered, scanning the beach. They just disappear? Kyle edged closer to the water, squinting into the darkness. Maybe they went for a swim? He suggested, though his bravado was fading. Let's head back, Amy called out, her voice trembling. This isn't funny anymore. But before we could turn around, a chilling wind swept through, carrying an unsettling whisper that seemed to echo off the waves. Kyle. It called, a voice not quite human. Did you hear that? I asked, my heart racing. Kyle stepped forward, entranced. I think someone's out there. I'll just take a quick look. No. Nick shouted, but it was too late. Kyle had already stepped into the surf, the water lapping at his feet. We watched in horror as he waded deeper, the waves swallowing him whole. Come back. Amy screamed, but Kyle didn't respond. He simply vanished into the darkness, leaving us paralyzed with fear. Panic set in. We turned to run back to the bonfire, but the beach seemed to stretch endlessly. The sand felt alive beneath our feet, shifting and pulling us back as if the very earth was conspiring against us. Where's the fire? I cried out, breathless. The flickering light had grown dim, and the shadows around us thickened, swallowing the moonlight. No. Nick shouted, frantically looking around. We have to go back. We need to find him. But no matter how far we ran, the bonfire remained just out of reach, and the sound of the waves morphed into a cacophony of tortured cries, echoing in my mind. Each step we took felt heavier, as if something sinister was pressing down on us, feeding on our fear. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder this time. You shouldn't have come here. He belongs to us now. Who are you? I shouted into the darkness, desperation clawing at my throat. Lost souls, the voice hissed from the shadows, chilling me to the bone. We are the keepers of the tide, the guardians of those who tread too far into the deep. Your friend is ours now, and you shall join him. A frigid wave of terror washed over me as the darkness around us thickened. The shadows seemed to writhe, forming grotesque shapes that flickered in and out of existence. I could feel their eyes, countless, cold and hungry, fixated on us, feeding off our fear. Run! I screamed, but the words barely escaped my lips before a heavy weight settled on my chest. It felt as if the very air had thickened, making it hard to breathe. Nick stumbled beside me, panic etched on his face. We can't just leave him, he yelled, desperation flooding his voice. Leave who? A voice whispered behind us, low and menacing. I turned, heart racing, but there was nothing there, only the unrelenting darkness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The bonfire's glow flickered in the distance, but it felt unreachable, like a mirage taunting us. We began to run again, but the beach was no longer familiar. The sand shifted with each frantic step, dragging us back toward the water. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of anguished voices that echoed in my mind. Help us! Help us! Join us! Don't listen! Amy shouted, her voice breaking. They're trying to trick us. We sprinted toward the flickering light, but the beach twisted and turned, leading us in circles. It was as if the ground itself was a labyrinth designed to keep us away from safety. The shadows darted around us and I could feel their breath on my neck, icy and suffocating. Then just ahead I saw Kyle's face, pale and haunting, emerging from the surf. His eyes were wide and unseeing, a vacant expression that sent a chill down my spine. "Kyle," I cried, reaching out for him, but he was submerged in the water, the waves crashing around him, pulling him deeper. "Help me," he called, but it was not his voice. It was distorted, mingled with the whispers of the lost souls. "You need to join me. It's so peaceful here." "No," Nick shouted, tears streaming down his face. "We're not leaving you." But as we moved closer, the tide surged forward, rising higher, and the water began to glow with an unnatural light. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once. I felt myself drawn to it, the whispers beckoning, promising freedom from fear, a release I desperately craved. "Don't listen," Amy screamed, grabbing my arm and pulling me back. "We have to fight it." With a surge of willpower, I shook off the fog of fear clouding my mind. "We can't give in. We have to find a way back." Suddenly, the ground beneath us shifted and the footprints reappeared, leading us away from the water's edge and back toward the fire. I grabbed Amy's hand and we ran, dragging Nick along as we followed the faint path in the sand. The whispers grew frantic, clawing at our minds, but we pushed forward, driven by survival. As we neared the bonfire, the shadows receded slightly, but I could still feel their presence, lurking just beyond the flickering light. The warmth of the fire enveloped us as we stumbled back, collapsing onto the sand. "Where's Kyle?" Nick gasped, looking around frantically. "Gone," I said, my voice hollow. "He's gone." The flames crackled and popped, casting eerie shadows that danced around us. The whispers became a low growl, threatening and angry, as if they were warning us that we had escaped for now. But as we sat there, panting and shaken, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. The air grew heavy and I caught a glimpse of movement just outside the firelight, a shadow slipping back into the darkness. "Are they still here?" Amy whispered, her eyes wide with terror. Before I could respond, the fire sputtered, dimming as if something was snuffing it out. Panic surged through me. "We need to go. Now." But as we stood up, the beach twisted once more and the shadows closed in, their whispers filling the air with a sinister promise. "You cannot leave. You will return to us." In that moment I realized the truth. The beach was a trap, a never-ending cycle of despair. We were bound to this place, destined to relive Kyle's disappearance over and over, haunted by the malevolent force that thrived on our fear. The fire flickered once more, casting long shadows that reached out like skeletal fingers, and I felt a cold dread seep into my bones. "We have to fight," I urged, glancing at my friends, their faces pale and drawn. "We can't let them take us." But as I spoke, the shadows surged forward, whispering promises of release and peace. I felt the weight of their presence pressing against my chest, threatening to suffocate me under the weight of despair. I looked around, desperate for a way out, but the beach seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction, a vast expanse of darkness where the ocean roared angrily, its waves crashing against an invisible shore. "Remember what we said about the lighthouse?" Nick blurted out, his voice shaking. "Maybe it's our only chance. If we can reach it, we might find something that can help us." I nodded, though doubt gnawed at me. "It's worth a shot. We can't stay here." With renewed determination we turned away from the fire. I could feel the shadows slithering around us, clawing at our minds, whispering doubts and fears, but we pressed on. The footprints in the sand reappeared once more, faint but guiding, leading us away from the fire and toward the direction of the lighthouse. As we ran, the shadows chased us, their whispers growing louder, filling the air with a cacophony of anguish and despair. "You'll never escape. You'll never find him. He belongs to us." The cold sea breeze whipped around us, stinging our faces as we approached the rocky outcropping where the lighthouse stood, its silhouette looming ominously against the night sky. The door creaked open as we stumbled inside, desperate for refuge. Inside, the air was stale and heavy, the walls lined with peeling paint and the remnants of old lanterns. The spiral staircase wound upwards, spiraling into darkness. "We need to get to the top," I urged, glancing back as the shadows crept closer, their forms coiling like smoke. We raced up the stairs, the wooden steps creaking beneath our weight. With each step, I could hear the whispers echoing behind us, taunting us, promising that we would never escape. "You're not strong enough. You're too weak to resist." "Keep going," Amy shouted, her voice fierce. "Don't listen to them." Finally, we reached the top, bursting into the lantern room. The glass walls sparkled with shards of moonlight, casting eerie patterns across the floor. The light was dim, barely illuminating the space, but it felt like a sanctuary compared to the darkness that pursued us. But as we caught our breath, the shadows surged into the room, swirling around us like a tempest. "You think this will protect you?" The voice was a low growl filled with malice. "You are ours." Panic gripped my heart. We had to do something. "The lantern," I shouted, pointing to the old brass lantern in the center of the room. "If we can light it, maybe it can drive them away." Nick rushed forward, his hands trembling as he fumbled with the flint and oil. "Hurry," I urged, glancing back at the encroaching shadows, which writhed and twisted, drawing closer with every passing second. Finally, a spark caught and the flame flickered to life, casting a warm glow throughout the room. The shadows recoiled, hissing as the light pushed against them. "No!" they screamed, the voices rising in a chaotic chorus. "You can't escape us." With the lantern lit, a surge of hope filled me. "It's working. Keep it going," I shouted, rallying my friends. We formed a circle around the lantern, holding hands tightly, channeling our fear into determination. The shadows pressed against the light, their forms shifting and snarling. "You think you can resist? You will return to us." "No," Amy shouted, her voice fierce. "We're not afraid of you." In that moment, something within me ignited. I felt the fear dissipating as I focused on the memories of Kyle, his laughter, his courage, his spirit. "You may have taken him, but you will never take us," I yelled, my voice ringing clear and strong. The lantern flared brightly, illuminating the room with a brilliant light that pushed back the darkness. The shadows writhed and shrieked, their forms dissolving like mist under the sun. "No, no," they cried, their voices fading, losing their grip on reality. With one final surge of light, the shadows were banished, dissipating into the night, leaving only silence in their wake. We stood there, panting and overwhelmed, the weight of the darkness lifting as the last echoes of the whispers faded into nothingness. The lantern cast a warm glow around us, and for the first time since we'd arrived at the beach, I felt a sense of safety. Did we really do it?" Nick gasped, still catching his breath, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I think so," I replied, my heart racing. "But we need to stay alert. We can't let our guard down until we're far away from here." Amy stepped closer to the lantern, her gaze fixed on the flickering flame. "We have to find a way to get back to the others. They might still be in danger." I nodded, looking around the room. The lighthouse felt strangely serene now, illuminated by the light we had summoned. "Let's find a way down and head back to the beach. If we can reach the bonfire, maybe we can regroup and figure out what to do next." As we descended the spiral staircase, I could still feel the remnants of fear lingering in the air, but the darkness no longer felt like an imminent threat. The lantern's light was our shield, keeping the shadows at bay. We made our way down, our footsteps echoing in the quiet. When we reached the bottom, the door creaked open, revealing the moonlit beach outside. The waves lapped gently at the shore, a stark contrast to the chaos we had just endured. But the bonfire was still burning in the distance, a beacon of hope. "Let's go," I urged, and we rushed outside, the cool night air refreshing against our skin. As we ran toward the bonfire, I felt a sense of urgency. Kyle was still out there, and we couldn't leave without him. When we reached the flickering flames, I scanned the shoreline, searching for any sign of our friend. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced around us, but there was no one else in sight. "Where is everyone?" Amy whispered, her voice trembling. "What if they're still out there?" "We can't lose hope," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We have to call for them. They might be hiding or trying to find us." We gathered around the fire, calling out for Kyle and the others, our voices echoing into the night. "Kyle, can you hear us? We're here." The waves crashed against the shore, but there was no answer. Just as despair began to creep in again, I noticed a movement out of the corner of my eye. A figure emerged from the shadows, stumbling toward us. "Kyle!" Nick shouted, rushing forward. It was him, disheveled and drenched, but alive. "Kyle!" I echoed, relief flooding through me as I ran to him. "We thought we lost you." He looked dazed, his eyes wide with confusion. I don't remember much. I was pulled under and then I saw them. The shadows. They were everywhere." "We fought them off," Amy said, her voice steady. "But we need to get out of here before they come back." Kyle nodded, shaking off the remnants of his fear. "I heard you calling. I thought I was lost for good." As we embraced him, the warmth of the bonfire surrounded us, a stark contrast to the cold darkness we had faced. "We have to stick together," I said, looking at each of my friends. "We can't let them divide us again." Suddenly, a distant sound caught our attention, a low rumble that echoed across the beach. The ground beneath our feet trembled and I felt a surge of adrenaline. "We need to leave now," I urged, feeling the urgency of our situation. We turned to head back toward the path leading off the beach, but as we did, the shadows began to swirl again, creeping along the edge of the bonfire's light. "You can't escape so easily," the whispers taunted, a sinister chorus rising around us. "This is just the beginning." "Run," I shouted, grabbing Kyle's hand and pulling him along. The others followed, sprinting away from the encroaching darkness, the fire's glow fading behind us. As we raced up the sandy path, I could feel the shadows clawing at our heels, desperate to reclaim us. The whispers grew louder, filling the air with threats and promises of despair. "You will return. You will never be free." But we didn't stop. We ran through the trees, past the brush, until we reached the edge of the forest. The moonlight illuminated our path, guiding us away from the terror behind us. "There's a road up ahead," Nick shouted, pointing to a faint trail that led into the darkness beyond the trees. The asphalt glimmered under the moonlight, a lifeline that promised safety and escape. "Let's go," I urged, my heart pounding as we dashed toward the road. The shadows behind us hissed in frustration, their whispers becoming a frantic cacophony. "You can't outrun your fears. You will return." As we reached the edge of the road, I glanced back just in time to see the shadows retreating, momentarily held at bay by the light of the moon. "They're not following us here," Kyle gasped, panting heavily. "At least for now." We stood on the road, trying to catch our breath, the adrenaline still coursing through our veins. "What do we do now?" Amy asked, her voice a mixture of fear and determination. "We can't just stay here forever. We need to find help," I said, looking down the road in both directions. "We need to get to town. There's bound to be someone who can assist us." "Which way?" Nick asked, glancing between the two paths. "Let's go left," I decided, pointing toward what seemed to be a faint glow in the distance. "It looks like there might be lights down that way." We started down the road, moving as quickly as we could. The shadows had retreated, but the lingering sense of dread hung in the air like a storm cloud. Every rustle of leaves or crack of a twig sent shivers down my spine. "Stay close," I whispered, instinctively grasping Kyle's hand tighter. As we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching us, waiting for the moment we would let our guard down. "We should stick together and keep talking," I suggested, trying to break the oppressive silence. "It'll help us stay focused." "What about the lighthouse?" Nick asked, looking back toward the dark silhouette behind us. "Do you think it's safe? Should we go back?" "No," I said firmly. "We've faced enough for one night. We need to get to safety first. The lighthouse can wait." We continued down the road, the glow in the distance growing brighter. Soon we could see the outlines of buildings, a small town, seemingly untouched by the chaos we had just experienced. Relief washed over me, but I hesitated. "We need to be cautious. We don't know if the shadows can reach us here." As we approached the first building, a quaint diner with neon lights buzzing softly, I gestured for everyone to stop. "We should check inside and see if anyone can help." We pushed open the door, the bell above it chiming as we stepped inside. The diner was empty, save for a lone waitress cleaning a table in the corner. She looked up, her expression shifting from boredom to surprise. "Hey there. You all look like you've been through a storm," she said, her voice warm despite the late hour. "What can I do for you?" "We need help. We've just come from the beach," I explained, my voice trembling with urgency. "There's something out there, darkness, shadows. We're not safe yet." The waitress raised an eyebrow, but there was a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Shadows, huh? You're not the first to mention strange things happening down by the beach lately. Come on in and sit down. I'll get you some coffee and see what I can do." Gratefully, we slid into a booth, the vinyl seats cool against our skin. As the waitress poured steaming cups of coffee, I glanced around, half expecting the shadows to seep in through the door with us. "Do you have a phone?" Kyle asked, breaking the silence. "We need to call for help." "Right in the back," she replied, nodding toward a door marked employees only. "Use it as long as you need." Nick jumped up and hurried to the phone while the rest of us took a sip of the bitter coffee. It was a small comfort in the wake of everything we had faced. "Anyone in town?" Nick called out, his voice rising with hope. "We need to contact the police or—" Just then the door swung open and a tall figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the neon lights. The air around us seemed to still and I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "Something's wrong with the beach," the figure said, their voice deep and gravelly. "You shouldn't be out there at night." The waitress nodded, a worried look crossing her face. You've seen it too then? The newcomer stepped into the light, revealing an older man with a weathered face and piercing eyes. I've been watching the shoreline for years. The shadows have been growing bolder, creeping in closer to the town. People have gone missing. Some say they hear whispers calling to them from the water. What do you mean, missing? I asked, my curiosity piqued despite the lingering fear. Is it connected to what we just experienced? The man nodded gravely, taking a seat across from us. They lure you and make you think it's all just a story. But once you're lost in their world, it's hard to find your way back. I've seen it happen too many times. Kyle leaned forward, urgency in his voice. What can we do? How do we stop them? The man paused, studying each of us with an intensity that made me uneasy. You need to confront the darkness. It feeds on fear and despair. The more you run, the stronger it becomes. You have to face it and shine a light on it, quite literally. But we've already fought them off once, Amy interjected, her voice trembling. What if we can't do it again? Then you must find something that gives you strength. A memory, a light, anything that reminds you of hope, he replied. You'll need it for the next time they come. And trust me, they will come. Nick returned from the back, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. I called the local sheriff. They're sending someone our way, but it'll take a while to get here. Good, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We can regroup and prepare. The waitress set down a plate of fries in front of us, her hands shaking slightly. You kids shouldn't have gone down to that beach. It's not just a pretty place, it's cursed. Cursed, I repeated, skepticism creeping into my voice. What do you mean? It's an old legend, the man said, his eyes narrowing. Years ago, a group of sailors was lost to the depths during a storm, and their spirits are said to haunt the shore. They're drawn to those who wander too close, seeking vengeance for their own lost lives. Then how do we break the curse? Kyle asked, determination gleaming in his eyes. The man leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You must return to the beach and confront it at dawn. That's when the shadows are at their weakest. Bring light with you, lanterns, flashlights, anything you can find. The light will repel them, but you must also be strong in spirit. What if we fail? Amy asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Then you risk becoming lost like the others, he replied somberly. But if you succeed, you might free those who are trapped. A heavy silence filled the diner as we absorbed the gravity of his words. The waitress refilled our coffee cups, her hands steadying as she looked at us. You're brave for wanting to go back. Many wouldn't dare. We have to try, I said, my resolve hardening. We can't let them win. Not after everything we've faced. As we finished our drinks and gathered our courage, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The shadows had haunted us long enough, and it was time to reclaim our lives. Let's gather what we need, I said, looking around the diner. We need flashlights, lanterns, watching the shoreline for years. The darkness is not just shadows. It's something much older and more powerful. People who go there often don't come back the same. What do you mean? I asked, my heart racing. What is it? He pulled up a chair without being invited and leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. It's a force that feeds on fear and despair. It lures people with promises, but once it has you, it doesn't let go. You need to be careful. The waitress set down a steaming plate of pancakes in front of us, her hands trembling slightly. There have been stories. Sightings. People disappearing near the beach, strange happenings at night. I thought they were just rumors until you came in here looking like you escaped a nightmare. Kyle, still shaken but more composed now, leaned forward. We saw things, dark figures, whispers in the wind. We thought we were going to be consumed by it. How can we stop it? The man sighed heavily, his gaze distant as if recalling his own traumatic experiences. You can't stop it directly. It's part of the land, part of the history of this place. But you can protect yourselves. You need to confront your fears to stand against it. It thrives on weakness and doubt. But how? Amy interjected, her voice trembling. How do we confront something that feels so overwhelming? By remembering who you are, the man replied, his eyes locking onto mine. By refusing to let it define you. You need to face it together. Find others who know about it and don't let the darkness isolate you again. Nick returned from the phone, his expression grim. I couldn't get through. The lines are down. It's like the whole town is cut off. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. What do we do now? We can't just sit here and wait for it to come back. Listen, the man said, his tone urgent. The shadows will come for you again. They're drawn to fear. You need to gather your strength. You can't let it know how afraid you are. Is there a way to fight back? Kyle asked, desperation creeping into his voice. There are tales of old rituals, ways to reclaim your power, the man replied. But you need to be careful. Not everyone who tries to confront it comes back unscathed. We'll do whatever it takes, I said firmly, looking around at my friends. We can't let it win. We've already lost too much. The man nodded, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Good, but first you need to rest. Recover your strength. I can help you find what you need, but you can't do it on empty stomachs or tired minds. The waitress returned, her hands now steady as she placed more food in front of us. A feast of pancakes, eggs, and bacon. Eat up. You'll need your energy. As we dug into the food, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. We were still alive, still together, and we had a chance to fight back against the darkness that had haunted us. The man watched us with a knowing expression. Once you're ready, meet me at the edge of the forest at dawn. Bring what you can, items that hold meaning for you, things that remind you of your strength. We'll perform the ritual then. Thank you, I said, my voice filled with gratitude. For everything. Just remember, he cautioned, his voice low and serious. The shadows will not let go easily. They will try to exploit your fears, to turn you against each other. Trust in each other and you may have a chance. We can't let it win. We've already lost too much. The man nodded, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Good, but first you need to rest. Recover your strength. I can help you find what you need, but you can't do it on empty stomachs or tired minds. The waitress returned, her hands now steady as she placed more food in front of us. A feast of pancakes, eggs, and bacon. Eat up. You'll need your energy. As we dug into the food, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. We were still alive, still together, and we had a chance to fight back against the darkness that had haunted us. The man watched us with a knowing expression. Once you're ready, meet me at the edge of the forest at dawn. Bring what you can, items that hold meaning for you, things that remind you of your strength. We'll perform the ritual then. Thank you, I said, my voice filled with gratitude. For everything. Just remember, he cautioned, his voice low and serious. The shadows will not let go easily. They will try to exploit your fears, to turn you against each other. Trust in each other and you may have a chance. As the night wore on, we shared stories over our meal. Laughter and camaraderie slowly replacing the fear that had gripped us earlier. The diner felt like a sanctuary, a safe haven from the darkness outside. But I knew that as dawn approached, the real challenge lay ahead. After finishing our meal, we thanked the waitress and the man, promising to return. As we stepped back outside, the cool night air hit us, but the glow of the diner still lingered in our hearts. Let's find a place to rest for the night, I suggested, looking around at the quiet town. We need to be sharp for tomorrow. We quickly located a small motel nearby, the neon sign flickering invitingly. After checking in, we gathered in one of the rooms, exhausted but determined. As we settled in, I glanced at each of my friends. Tomorrow we confront the darkness. Together. With that, we turned off the lights and lay down, the weight of the night's events heavy on our. Sleep came in fits and starts, punctuated by restless dreams, visions of shadowy figures creeping closer, whispers echoing in my ears. I jolted awake several times, heart racing, only to find my friends sleeping soundly beside me. Each time I reminded myself of the strength we would need in the morning. When the first light of dawn broke through the curtains, I felt a sense of urgency wash over me. I quietly got up, careful not to disturb the others. I needed to prepare, to gather my thoughts and focus on what lay ahead. The quiet of the motel was comforting but also unnerving, as if the calm before a storm. As I stepped outside, the chill of the morning air hit my skin and I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The world was waking up, but I knew we were already in the midst of something much larger than the sunrise. I glanced at the beach in the distance, its waves crashing rhythmically against the shore. After a quick shower and a few minutes of reflection, I woke my friends. The atmosphere in the room shifted as we each realized it was time to confront our fears. There was an unspoken bond among us, a shared understanding that we were in this together. We need to gather our things, I said, my voice steady. And remember what the man said. We need items that give us strength. We each took a moment to think about what that meant. Amy reached for a small pendant she always wore, a gift from her grandmother that symbolized hope. Kyle pulled out a photo of his family, a reminder of the love that grounded him. Nick brought a worn-out journal filled with his dreams and aspirations. I retrieved a small flashlight that had been my dad's, a symbol of guidance in dark times. With our items in hand, we made our way to the edge of the forest, the path winding through the trees and leading us closer to the beach. The air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. As we approached the meeting spot, I spotted the man waiting for us, his expression serious but encouraging. "You're here," he said, nodding at our items. "Good. Hold them tightly. They'll give you strength." "What's the plan?" Kyle asked, his voice steady but laced with anxiety. "We'll begin the ritual at the water's edge," the man instructed. "Stand together. When the shadows come, face them as a united front. Don't let fear take hold of you." The beach stretched out before us, the waves crashing rhythmically against the shore. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue across the water. It was beautiful yet ominous. We formed a circle, holding our items tightly as the man began to chant softly, words that felt ancient and powerful. As he spoke, I could feel the energy around us shift, a palpable force that seemed to resonate with the very ground beneath our feet. The wind picked up and I could sense the shadows lurking just beyond the water's edge, swirling like smoke, waiting for the right moment to strike. My heart raced, but I felt the warmth of my friends beside me, grounding me. "Remember why you're here," the man urged, his voice rising above the crashing waves. "Focus on your light, on the strength that brought you together." As the shadows approached, I felt a coldness seep into the air, the whispers growing louder. They taunted us, echoing our fears and doubts. But I closed my eyes, focusing on the light of the flashlight in my hand, the warmth of my friend's presence, and the love that fueled my determination. "Together," I shouted, opening my eyes to face the darkness. "We will not be afraid." With those words, we raised our items high, the flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The shadows recoiled, hissing and swirling, but we held our ground. The man continued to chant, and I could feel the power of our unity pushing back against the darkness. It was a battle of wills, light against shadow. The whispers turned to wails, as if the spirits were fighting against the light we wielded. "Don't back down," Amy cried, her voice strong. "We can do this." The shadows surged forward, but we stood firm, our collective strength illuminating the air. I could feel the warmth of hope radiating from us, pushing against the cold despair that the shadows brought. Slowly, the shadows began to dissipate, retreating back into the depths from which they came. The whispers faded, replaced by the sound of the waves and the morning breeze. As the last remnants of darkness vanished, a sense. The man smiled, a look of pride and relief on his face. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "You faced your fears and held on to your strength. That's no small feat." We exchanged glances, the adrenaline of the moment still coursing through our veins. "What happens now?" Nick asked, his voice still slightly shaky. "Now you carry this experience with you," the man replied. "You've forged a bond that will help you in the challenges ahead. Remember, the light within you is always stronger than the darkness that may try to creep in." We took a moment to soak in our victory, the sound of the waves soothing our racing hearts. A newfound sense of purpose began to settle over us, and we knew that whatever we faced in the future, we would face it together. "Let's head back," I suggested, feeling a sense of clarity settling in. "We have a lot to process, and it's time to share this with others who might need to hear it." As we walked back along the beach, the sun's rays danced on the water, each step feeling lighter than the last. The world around us seemed vibrant, filled with possibility. The shadows had been vanquished, at least for now, and we were ready to take on whatever came next. Once we reached the motel, we gathered around the small table in our room, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement and relief. We shared our thoughts, each of us expressing how the experience had changed us. "I never thought I could face those shadows," Amy admitted. "But standing together like that, it made all the difference." "I felt like we were part of something bigger," Kyle added. "Like we were connected not just to each other but to everyone who's ever faced their fears." As I listened to my friends, I realized that this experience had not just been about confronting darkness. It was about discovering the light within ourselves and each other. The ritual had taught us that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength when shared among friends. "Let's document this," I suggested, pulling out my phone. "We should write down what happened today, the lessons we learned. Maybe it can help others." With that, we began to recount our experience, each of us taking turns to share our insights and feelings. It felt cathartic, like we were releasing the weight of our fears into the universe, transforming them into something positive. As the day wore on, we decided to take a walk along the beach, the salty breeze invigorating our spirits. The waves lapped gently at our feet and we laughed together, the shadows of fear now a distant memory. "Do you think they'll come back?" Nick asked, glancing over his shoulder at the ocean. "Maybe," I replied thoughtfully. "But now we know how to face them. We have each other and we have our light." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, we made a pact to always support one another, no matter what challenges lay ahead. We understood that life would bring its share of darkness, but we were ready to confront it, armed with our friendship and the strength we had discovered together. The experience had transformed not just our view of fear but also our view of ourselves. We were no longer just a group of friends. We were a team, united by a shared journey that had taught us the true meaning of courage. And with that realization, we felt hopeful about the future, ready to embrace whatever came next together. The moon hung low in the sky, illuminating the beach with a silvery glow that shimmered across the surface of the water. I had always loved the ocean at night. The rhythmic sound of the waves crashing against the shore was oddly comforting. The gentle lullaby of the sea had often lulled me into peaceful reveries during my childhood, where dreams of adventure and exploration danced through my mind. But tonight, that familiar comfort was replaced by a creeping sense of unease, wrapping around me like a cold blanket. The beach was eerily quiet and I was completely alone. The only sounds were the whisper of the wind weaving through the dunes and the distant call of a seagull, echoing like a ghostly reminder of the day. As I stepped into the water, the coldness sent a shiver down my spine, jolting me back to reality. I welcomed it, hoping it would chase away the unease that clung to me. The waves lapped at my ankles, then my knees, pulling me deeper into the dark, inviting abyss. The water was exhilarating as it rolled over my skin, and for a moment I felt weightless, free from my worries. I swam out a little, reveling in the sensation of being surrounded by the vastness of the ocean, feeling it buoy me up. But a gnawing feeling at the back of my mind told me I shouldn't be here alone. The thought flitted through my mind like a shadow, and I glanced back at the empty shore, the lights of the nearby town flickering far in the distance. Suddenly, without warning, a massive wave rose before me, towering ominously. My heart raced as I tried to gauge its size. I had no time to react. Fear seized me as it crashed down, pulling me under and swallowing the breath from my lungs. The world erupted into chaos. The sound of the ocean became a deafening roar and I flailed, panic surging through me as the darkness enveloped me. For a moment, I was disoriented, the water swirling around me like a storm. I struggled to find my bearings, but the salt water burned my eyes, and the pressure around me was suffocating. As I fought to surface, I felt something wrap around my legs, thick tendrils of seaweed. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I was trapped, the green strands constricting like a vice. The more I thrashed, the tighter they gripped me, dragging me further into the depths. Panic surged through me and I could feel the weight of the water pressing down on me, the cold darkness closing in. I could feel the pressure building in my chest, my lungs screaming for air. Desperation clawed at my throat. I had heard stories of people drowning, their cries for help lost to the waves, and I wasn't ready to become one of those stories. The thought of my family, my friends, and the life I had just begun to embrace flashed through my mind in a frantic reel. I was not ready to say goodbye. Summoning every ounce of strength I had left, I focused on my breathing, willing myself to calm down. I clawed at the seaweed, tearing it away with frantic determination. My fingers finally found a gap and I kicked hard, propelling myself upward. The fight for survival surged within me, a primal instinct taking over. I could see a glimmer of light above me, the surface of the water dancing tantalizingly close. As I broke through the surface, the cold air hit me like a slap. I gasped, choking on seawater as I fought to stay afloat. My heart raced and I could hear the pounding of blood in my ears. But the ocean wasn't done with me yet. Another wave surged toward me, more menacing than the last. I scrambled, desperate to reach the shore, each stroke feeling like a battle against an unseen force that sought to pull me back into the depths. With every ounce of energy, I swam toward the fading light of the beach, the shore looking like a distant beacon of hope. My arms burned and my legs felt heavy, but I pushed through the exhaustion, fueled by sheer determination. Finally, my feet touched the sand and I stumbled forward, collapsing onto the shore, gasping for breath. The cool grains felt comforting against my skin, grounding me in a way that the water had not. I looked back at the water, still and deceptively calm as if nothing had happened, but I knew better. The shadows danced just beneath the surface, and I could still feel the ghostly grip of the seaweed around my legs, a haunting reminder of the struggle I had just endured. I lay there for a moment, heart racing, the ocean whispering ominously in the night. I had come so close to being taken, and a chill ran through me as I realized how easily I could have become just another statistic, another name lost to the unforgiving sea. The waves lapped gently at the shore now, as if mocking my fear, their soft rhythm betraying the chaos I had just experienced. I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm my racing heart, but every exhale felt like a reminder of how fragile life could be. The moonlight cast long shadows across the beach, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced around, half expecting to see someone emerging from the darkness, a lifeguard, a fellow beachgoer, anyone to share this moment with. But the beach remained desolate, a vast expanse of sand and sea, stripped of warmth and comfort. Pushing myself up, I wiped the sand from my arms and legs, my skin prickling with the residual cold. I felt a surge of gratitude for the shore beneath me, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. The ocean, with its enticing beauty, had a dark side that I had never truly acknowledged before. I couldn't help but think of the legends I had heard, stories of those who had ventured too far, who had been claimed by the waters. The thought gnawed at me, an unsettling reminder of my vulnerability. As I stood there, the tide slowly retreating, I couldn't shake the image of the wave that had pulled me under. It felt deliberate, almost alive, like a predator lying in wait for the next unsuspecting victim. I turned my gaze back to the water, the moonlight painting a serene picture that belied the violent force below. I could still feel the weight of the seaweed around my legs, a phantom sensation that clung to me even now. With a deep breath, I took a few hesitant steps back, away from the water's edge. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to retreat to the safety of the familiar. I glanced back at the path leading up to the parking lot where my car sat waiting. It felt miles away, but I knew I had to go. I had danced too close to danger tonight, and the ocean had shown me its true face, a beautiful, treacherous mask. As I made my way along the sand, I glanced back one last time at the water. The waves continued their eternal dance, but now I saw them differently. They were no longer comforting, they were a reminder of the power they held. I could almost imagine the sea whispering secrets, calling to those who dared to listen. I shivered, feeling the need to distance myself from their allure. The path became clearer as I neared the parking lot, the familiar sights of cars and the distant glow of streetlights offering a sense of security. But even as I walked away, I felt the ocean's pull, the haunting beauty of its depths lingering in my mind. I could still hear the whispers, the call of the sea echoing in my ears. Once I reached my car, I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking slightly. I glanced back one last time at the beach, the waves crashing rhythmically against the shore, indifferent to my fears. I climbed into the driver's seat, locking the doors behind me. As I drove away, I stole a glance in the rearview mirror. The moonlight glimmered off the water, a beautiful facade hiding the darkness beneath. From that night on, the beach became a place of mixed feelings for me. I still loved the ocean, the way it sang to me in the moonlight, but I also respected its power. I learned to appreciate its beauty from a distance, vowing never to return alone. The ocean was a part of me, but it was also a reminder of the fine line between serenity and chaos, a lesson in humility and respect for the forces of nature. And as I drove away, a part of me understood that some places, no matter how beautiful, held secrets that were best left undisturbed, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the next curious soul to wander too close to the edge.